Hey everybody, it's Brian Asbury, and I just wanted to welcome you to today's episode. If you could, like today's episode, hit that subscribe button, and let's continue to grow the developmentally speaking brand. Today, my guest is former WWE superstar, hardcore champion, winner of Tough Enough Season 1, and the reason why everybody chased their dreams of getting into professional wrestling, Maven Huffman. Maven, how are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you? I'm actually texting my YouTube partner right now to tell him I'm doing this podcast.
Oh, well, Zach's a good guy.
Yeah, he's the best. He's the best.
So let me ask you a
You want me to tell him
question.
you said hi?
Yes,
You want me to
sir,
tell him you said
please.
hi?
Absolutely. I can't imagine what your inbox looks like. It's got to be ridiculous.
You know what? It's yeah. Like hold on, I'll tell you. I have 1,389. 1,389 unread emails. And if I get to a third of them, I'll be happy.
So let me ask you a question you've probably been asked hundreds of times. What made you pursue professional wrestling? What was the moment that hooked you?
When I was young, I grew up in Virginia and loved wrestling. I was the guy, and I wasn't and I probably the reason why I do what I do now. I wasn't the one who was disappointed when I found out that it was scripted, predetermined. I knew it all along. My father and I would actually get on the floor, and I made fake belts, and we would wrestle around. He took me to my first show in the Richmond Coliseum when I was 7 or 8 years old. I want to say that to me, wrestlers they were real life superheroes.
Hmm.
I loved, and I grew up watching a lot of NWA, WWF I would watch on Saturday nights, but just it was just the pageantry of it, the athleticism, the microphone work, it just wrestlers to me were the ultimate badasses. They were
Hmm.
comic book characters come to life, and I loved it my whole life. Now, growing up, I was into sports. So, how do you become a wrestler? Well, I don't know. And that's when the Tough Enough thing came around. And I've said it before. I literally felt like Jim Ross was talking to me that night on Raw when he said, "Have you ever wanted to be a wrestler?" And I was like, "Yes, yes, I have."
What was that? Why was that the defining moment of you were going to pursue professional wrestling?
Well, I had looked into wrestling schools. At the time, I was a sixth grade school teacher. I was in my second year teaching sixth grade, but I still, I was playing a little bit of semi-pro baseball, but I knew that wasn't going to go anywhere as far as a career option. So I was doing it mainly for fun, but I still had a competitive itch. I still had the drive, the desire to, to perform, to do something. And I mean, me and my buddies, like I'd been cutting promos on them for years. And they had been saying, once The Rock came out, then there was a little bit of a correlation because, we both had the same skin tone. And obviously, imitation is flattery.
Hmm.
Once he came out with his style, then I let my promo style kind of like lean into his art, and my buddies were always like, "Man, you should do this. Like that. There's your calling." Like,
Hmm.
but it's like, how the hell do you do that?
Hmm.
And at the time, I knew Shawn Michaels had a school in Texas. I had looked into that, But when's the right time? When is the right time to leave a job that is, that's money every month.
Hmm.
That's bills paid, and Tough Enough could not have came at a better time.
So how was that audition process for Tough Enough? How long after you sent in your tape did you hear back from them initially?
Yeah, it was that. I would say probably a few weeks, and then they called my classroom. And when they called my class, I thought my buddy was playing a joke on me. I hung up on him, and I went home. I mean, because it was before the days of everybody having these.
Hmm.
I literally went home and I was like, "Ah, you got me. Well done." He was like, "Dude, that was not me." And then I was just praying. I was like, "Please call back." And luckily they did, and I took them seriously. And I want to say within shoot, probably a week or so, I was flying out for the audition in New York. I'd never been to New York, my first time setting foot in New York. And once I got there, it was a 3-day audition process. It was Friday, that was the day everybody was there. Then they weeded it down Saturday to I don't know how many, but it was me and whoever else they thought they wanted to do a second round of interviews. And it's funny because being that Tough Enough was on MTV, they asked me, they said, do you want to be a wrestler or do you want to be on TV?
Mhm.
And I was like, how come? And they said, if you want to just be on TV, the next season of either Real World or Road Rules, we'll put you on one of those shows. And I was like, nah, I want to be a wrestler. And I often wondered how different my life would have been if I would have done that. Because I'd be like, because I probably would have been doing those challenges. Probably could have made a damn good living doing them.
Yeah.
But I'm happy the path I took. Then that Sunday, on Sunday is when they brought us all together and said, you guys are going to be going. And then they gave us a week to go home and get our affairs in order. And I had to go home, quit my job, disappoint, all my little sixth graders.
Hmm.
And, pretty much, I gave it all up for that. That's why when people quit Tough Enough, I couldn't believe it. Like, I
Hmm.
gave up a lot to be there. I mean, they would have had to do a lot to get me to quit.
Hmm.
A lot.
Those had to be 3 very long days with the amount of people that were applying.
Well, yeah, you know what? Not really. No part of me thought, I didn't think they were picking me.
Hmm. How come?
I thought I just got, cause man, there were big, gigantic, jacked up dudes in there that looked like wrestlers already,
Hmm.
and I don't. My mind just doesn't like. I don't know. I just don't let my mind. It tells me there's somebody better. There's somebody that's better here, and I still till up until like the last day, I still didn't think they were gonna pick me. And when they did, I just remember thinking, "Oh God, are you really ready to quit your job?" Yeah, but I'm glad I did.
So how was filming Tough Enough? Did you guys train while the cameras were off, or was your training just while you guys were filming?
I mean, those cameras never went off. Those cameras were in our face when we woke up, and literally they were in our face till we went to bed. They were in the face in the house during training. There was nothing that, yeah, they would have us do stuff over, like if we walked into a restaurant and they wanted to get a different shot, hey, walk in again, stuff like that. But as for training, there was never at any time that they said, redo that. They were just basically there capturing whatever took place.
Was that hard
And
to get used to?
eh, the cameras, yeah, it was more hard to get used to when you got to go take a piss and you got to tell people, man, take this mic pack off me or turn it off, man. I don't want you to hear me in the bathroom because you forget it's on.
Hmm.
And there was one cameraman there who, it was funny because he was just, they weren't allowed to talk to us, but he was a cool dude. And like, he would always like nod at me, like, what's up? And I would nod back at him. And he had a motorcycle and I would always like, I, I knew what my weaknesses were. My weaknesses, I hate running. Like I hated running all through growing up. So in order for me to be the best me, I made myself run.
Hmm.
Like I got to the point to where I could run probably 5 miles like that by the time I left. And I would have him when he was done. He would put me on the back of his motorcycle, and he would ride me down like 5 miles away from the house. And he would drop me off, and I would run back. And so, some of the cameraman, some of the producers, we got to know, on a personal level, and you become friends with these people when you're around them all the time. But it's weird when you immediately wake up and, you're like, and then there's a camera right in your face. You want to be like, man, get the hell out of here. But you, like anything in life, you get used to it.
Hmm. Was there anything particular hard for you to do while you were learning how to become a professional wrestler during this
Nah,
stuff?
man, I picked up everything. I picked up everything perfectly the first time. Are you kidding me? Everything, all of it was hard. Yeah, shit, it all was hard. The moves, and I tell people like the moves in wrestling. If you're athletic, they're not hard to pick up. You'll pick
Hmm.
you can figure the moves out. Hell, I could teach you 10 wrestling moves in a day. what the hard part becomes like, and what makes like guys like Randy Orton so good is the psychology of it, knowing when and where and why to do those moves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and knowing how to get the best reaction from the crowd. That's what takes years to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing, why, like for instance, if you knock somebody down and then go and pick them up, well, why the hell did you knock them down?
It's true.
Your whole goal is to knock them down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to teach your mind how to, if you knock someone down, you go and you could try to keep them down, and their whole goal is to get back up. Well, how do you tell that story? And it's just, it's it's funny because when I was with Taker, he and I were both talking about how wrestling has changed,
Mm-hmm.
and how now guys will do stuff just to do it. Like they'll knock somebody down and then let them get back up to go and knock them down a different way to show, I can do this move too. And it's different. Like I love watching the old tapes from like the 80s. Like those guys knew how to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
Like shit, some of those guys, they look like they're in a fight.
Yep.
And that's the way it's supposed to be.
Absolutely.
It's how I know I'm getting old. I'm sitting on my porch, I've turned into a get off my lawn guy. I'm sitting on my porch watching wrestling. That's not how we did it. Meanwhile, these guys are doing stuff that just I couldn't even begin to contemplate how to do.
How was it working with all the trainers on Tough Enough?
Oh my God, the trainers were great. Like Al became like a father. Taz gave us the perfect amount of discipline that we needed, because on days that Taz was there, the volume was ramped up, the intensity was ramped up, and we needed that though, because Al is a very easy guy
Mm-hmm.
to become friends with. But we didn't need friends. We needed
Mm-hmm.
people that were preparing us, and Taz did that. And then Miss Jackie, and Tori were both just amazing. Like both those girls knew exactly how to get to how to train us. And if we walked in immediately thinking, and Ivory, if we walked in and immediately thought, they were pushovers, they they stopped us from thinking that very quickly.
Is there any particular moments that stand out more than others during your time in Tough Enough?
And I mean, obviously, when Vince came,
Mm-hmm.
at the time, because that we weren't expecting that. The Triple H, and that's, hell, that's gone viral. People seen that a million times.
Mm-hmm.
I think that probably stands out just because, and it would take years to learn this, but and I know he was saying what he was saying, to get, to give us, the this is how life as a wrestler is. But I also recognize he was saying it for a soundbite. He was
Mm-hmm.
saying it to get, and what we didn't know, clicks. And later, in years later, it would get the clicks that we didn't even know it would get.
Mm-hmm.
But he was saying it for a soundbite for the DVD at the time. And you hear people say stuff like he was saying, and he's full of it. Man, there wasn't one thing he said that was untrue.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, every word he uttered. When he talked about, you're in pain, big deal. You
Mm-hmm.
hurt, who cares? Your back hurts, you don't think you can bump, so what? Go out and do it. And because that's life on the road. If you're in a wrestling locker room and you tell somebody you're hurt, man, they're gonna laugh at you, because everybody's hurt. Everybody's in pain. Everybody's wrestling with some injury.
Mm-hmm.
And if you tell somebody, man, I don't know what my girl's at home doing, big deal. She don't know what you're doing. Everybody in here is like that. So it would take years to realize, but every word he said was 100%
Mm-hmm.
accurate.
No.
And I just remember looking at, because I mean, I'd seen Hunter on TV, and
Mm-hmm.
I just remember looking at him and looking eye to eye to him, and he's about an inch taller than I am. But I just remember thinking, man, I'm I'm the same height as this dude. He's a bit bigger than I was at the time. But that was just surreal. Yeah, it was just a surreal feeling.
So when you win Tough Enough, what was the first thought? You have to get on stage, you have to give your speech. What was next? Did they have?
Oh man, I didn't even have a speech prepared. I winged. I'm better. I'm better like that though.
Yeah.
Like I'm way better off. Just let me talk. Let me say what comes into here. If you notice, when I win, I immediately, really, really briefly put my head down, and because I was thinking to myself, your life will never be
Mm-hmm.
the life you knew you'll never have again,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't. Like, I mean, I don't even know what my life would look like if if I wouldn't have won. I mean, obviously the guys from Tough Enough, they all got jobs, and I might have been in that list. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Or I might have left wrestling altogether. I don't know. I might be a guy that gets recognized once a year from a diehard fan, from
Mm-hmm.
someone who says, "Hey, you were on that show 20 years ago," and I'd be like, "Yeah, I was." I don't know, but I just remember thinking my life will never be the same, and it truly hasn't.
What was the next day like? Did they talk to you that night? Did you know what the
Man,
next steps were going to be?
I got drunk as hell that night. The next day, I think because we had to do a bunch of media, and I was hungover, and because I remember they made us go, and we had to do radio and a couple TV spots, and then I had to go to TRL. I don't know if you remember. You remember
Uh-huh.
Carson
Yep.
Daly's TRL,
Yep.
Total Request Live. So, and it's funny because I remember watching TRL. Like I never really watched it, but I remember seeing it and seeing how like they would always have the fans down on I don't know if that's Seventh Ave or whatever street that is in New York, but they would always have like the rock stars get in the window and the people would lose their shit. They would just lose their mind. And I was like, I'm gonna stand in this window. And I remember walking over to the window and people being like, ah, who's this guy? But hey, it's a bucket list thing. Check off. I got to do it. Yeah, but it was a whirlwind, and then we moved out of the house, and yeah, I went home and just got my affairs in order again to move to Cincinnati and HWA.
How was HWA? What was your take on the developmental system then? Because it's not what it is today.
No, and that's probably for the better. I still remember. So when I had to drive and actually meet the guys in HWA um, I had to meet them in at OVW
Mm-hmm.
on a Sunday night because they were filming their TV. And this is how crazy of a time it was. Think of this. I didn't have a hotel. I didn't have anything. I didn't have housing. They told me in the office, yeah, just drive up there, meet some of the boys, and one of them guys will let you bunk with them. Like it's that haphazard. I didn't even have housing lined up. Fortunately, I what they said happened. Easy Money. Who was the gosh? He was staying with Easy Money was staying with Jimmy Yang,
Mm-hmm.
Shannon Moore, Johnny the Bull. They all had a place together, and yeah, and I ended up staying. I ended up staying with those guys my entire duration in in HWA, and we became like a family,
Mm-hmm.
because I tell people like developmental now. If you look at it now, it's like minor leagues.
Mm-hmm.
It's like minor league baseball, minor league football. The setup they have, it's just next level. I mean, they pumped umpteen millions of dollars into this setup. I thought I was in the wrong location when I went to OVW for the first time. It was like it literally, I pulled into a parking lot with weeds that were grown up and condemned buildings. And I was like, there's no way this is the WWF's, minor leagues. There's just
Mm-hmm.
no way. And it was. And it was the biggest shithole I've ever seen in my life. But I'll take like no one can tell me that the developmental between HWA and OVW that wasn't the best assortment of talent ever,
Mm-hmm.
ever. And I mean, at that time, and I put myself in there just because I do. But I recognize I am far from the best talent that came from that. But you had Randy Orton, Brock, Batista, Cena, Shelton Benjamin, Charlie Haas, his brother. We had Umaga, Jamal. We had Rosie, 3 Minute Warning, Jamie Noble, Shannon Moore, Johnny the Bull. I mean, and I'm missing people. I guarantee it. Guys that would go on to be what you recognize. Let's say John Cena. I mean, guys that would become household names for the next 20 years in wrestling, all under these two organizations. And it was just like, and I still, again, I pulled up there and I'm like, holy cow, how in the hell am I going to stand out, with all these guys here? Fortunately, that's where having the tough enough machine behind me, helped. And those guys probably knew that and could have hated me. They could have hated my guts because they knew I was going to get a push regardless. But they didn't. I mean, if they did, they hid it pretty well.
How long were you in developmental between HWA and OVW?
You know what's funny? So I was there, and they would bring me up occasionally for little TV spots and everything, and then I did the Taker spot on the Rumble, and after that, then me and Taker had our little feud, and once I had the Hardcore Championship, like, I mean, I was on the road at that point. And to be honest with you, and you know what? It goes to show, like, I was in a good time because, man, I just stopped going. And no one gave me shit for it. Like, I literally just, because Howard Finkel asked me at TV one day, he's like, Maven, we're doing your travel for next week. Where are we flying you? And I was like, Virginia? Okay. And I just stopped showing up. And no one said a word. They never asked where I was. They never said, you need to be back here. You couldn't do that today.
No.
Like, that would not fly today at all. They would know exactly where you were. And, yeah, get your ass back here on your dime. But it played in my favor.
It shows you how much.
Maybe I should have been there learning.
It shows you how much communication was not there between.
Again, another thing where this has changed everything. Back then, you actually had to pick up a phone and call someone. Is Maven there? No, he's not. Shit. Let's see where he's at. Click. And then you had to make another call. There wasn't a text chain. Where are you? Yeah. There was a very big lack of communication. But I also don't think they knew what they had.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't know how useful and how impactful a developmental territory or an NXT or an FCW. They didn't know exactly how helpful that could be, and just preparing talent for that next stage. I look at what Triple H has done now with NXT and what Sean's done and what Baldo has done. It's its own entity all on its own.
Absolutely.
Like, literally, if you took that away and you said that wasn't owned by the WWE, it's still better than anything else. It would be number 2. It would be behind WWE, I believe. I truly believe that.
So how was it? You did a little bit time in developmental, and then you're on SmackDown. You're on Raw. Did you have nerves going out to that live crowd?
Dude, I still get nervous. If I do a small show and I go out, I still get nervous. I still remember we were doing a flea market. I forget where, somewhere in Ohio, and there was a big oh god, this would be the worst job on earth. There was a big gigantic trash can, and that trash can was right there, right beside Gorilla, for everybody to piss in before they were out. And the worst job on earth would be the guy who has to deal with that trash can at the end of the night. I'd be like, man, you don't pay me enough. I quit. Somebody has to. That trash can's not still sitting there with piss in it. Somebody has to deal with it. But yeah, man, I still get nervous. I was so scared. Fortunately, I always work with guys that knew how green I was and were there to help me out. Like I
Mm-hmm.
remember early in my developmental career, I had a match with Just Incredible. And he walked me through the entire match as we were doing it. But he did it in a way to where it was easy to follow, easy, and didn't look down on me because I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were okay with what I didn't know. And guys like that set the stage for how I now treat, younger talent and understanding they don't know what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And, being just okay with that. If you have to explain something,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, here's why we're going to do it this way, or here's why you should do this way, or here's why you should follow that up with this,
Mm-hmm.
because guys did that to me.
Not only were you just thrown on national television, but then you started working with some of the biggest names in professional wrestling. How did
Yeah.
you compose yourself doing that? So we're just throwing you straight out there. Here's
Yeah.
Taker. Here's Jericho. Here you go.
Yeah. Sink or swim. Sink or swim. And it was, gosh, it was, again, it helped being in there with the best in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, I had a lot of guys like a Taker, and Taker could have probably went to the office and been like, I don't want to work with this kid.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't, he's too green. He could have did any of that, and he didn't. He understood the way that this company, advances is by creating new stars. Jericho the same way. The Rock didn't have to come out and rock bottom Taker for me to win the hardcore title,
Mm-hmm.
but he did. Hunter didn't have to, put me in on his team, tagging with him on SmackDown
Mm-hmm.
like my fifth or sixth time, but he did. Booker didn't have to wrestle, but they did. It's just I was just around a lot of great guys who, even if they didn't like me or the position that I had, they put that aside and still did business and still made me better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made me eternally grateful. People always, when they talk about the YouTube channel, they always say, "Man, you're positive. You're always
Mm-hmm.
positive. You're not burying. You're not negative or bitter." I have nothing to be bitter about because I had guys like that.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing to be negative about because I recognize the opportunity that I had from guys that didn't owe me a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what the hell would I be bitter about? I don't get it. I don't understand why people are.
Yeah.
I brought it up to Taker, and he said he hadn't thought about it, and it's true. I view it this way: at when I was on the main roster, WWE main roster, and I could be off with these numbers, and if I'm off, I'm sure people will put it in the comments. But at any given time, there's 60 men, and I'm separating the women. They have theirs too. Probably 40 women, but there's 60 men in the world
Mm-hmm.
who have this job. 60.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like there's 52 men on an NFL roster for every team, but there's about 60 guys at any given time who have this job,
Mm-hmm.
and then shrink that down. There's maybe 25 who are on television on a weekly basis, and for 5 years I got to be in that.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's crazy when I think about it that way.
When you did the Rumble, and I know you've talked about this a little bit. I just saw the clip
That's
the other
like
day.
that's like astronaut. Like
Uh-huh.
that's about probably how many astronauts people have been in space that
That's
there
true.
are.
That's
And I'm
true.
honored about that. Sorry, I
As
didn't mean
you
to interrupt.
no, as you should be. I saw the clip the other day. What would have happened if you'd have missed that drop kick or
Dude, I have no
that?
idea.
We're not
Like
doing
Taker
tough
said,
enough
it wouldn't have
again.
been good. It wouldn't have been good. I'd have been shown the door. Because, like, seriously, think about that. Like, I can't, like, the spot was he has to get eliminated.
Hmm.
I am not eliminating him all on my own. The next person coming out was Scotty Too Hottie. I love you to death, Scott. Scott's not eliminating Taker. I don't know. And yeah, we're not starting a wrestling match. What are me and him going to lock up? No, I don't know.
Did they have any initial plans after that, like what direction they were going to go, or was it just like week by week with you?
Week by week. If they had them, they didn't tell me.
Hmm. Just
Like
saying.
I think it was week by week, and I think it had to be because you didn't know what reaction I was going to
Hmm.
get. I could have eliminated Taker, and the people could have sat on their hands.
That's
You
true.
know, and they. So what do you do then?
Hmm.
But I think when they saw just what the reaction was, then they said, okay, let's extend it a week. And then they saw what the reaction was. They had me wrestle Jericho, and then it was perfect when Taker came out and did the chair spot on the throat. Like that was so perfect. And I think they wrote it as far as they could.
Hmm. When did you know that WrestleMania 18 was happening?
Oh God, I think 2 weeks before they came and told me. It was weird because I was a hardcore champion, and I was like, man, they gotta have me drop this belt because they're gonna want the hardcore championship on WrestleMania,
Hmm.
like they're aren't they? And when they kept making me having me keep it, I was like, there's no way they have me on WrestleMania. There's no way. And then when they told me 2 weeks prior, yeah, you're gonna be on WrestleMania, then I was just like, oh my god, because like that's the Super Bowl, and just another dream. Check off the bucket list.
What was it like stepping out in front of that crowd? Because WrestleMania 18 setup, I just love everything about
Yeah,
that show.
I remember just because the Toronto Sky Dome, we went there a couple days beforehand and walked it, and I walked the ramp, and I remember just how long that walkway was, and I still remember coming out and just I've never seen that many people in one place that were looking at me.
Hmm.
And it's just weird having, I don't know, what's like 70,000 or something, knowing that many people their eyes are on me at that moment. It's just crazy. And again, just terrifying.
Yeah,
Like,
I couldn't
yeah.
imagine.
Yeah. And then I missed the drop kick in that one. Oh, God. I still remember Vince. Vince said, you got one move and you missed it. Like, he was legitimately pissed. Like for real. Fortunately for me, he had bigger fish to fry that night
Hmm.
with other matches. So, he only had a limited time in his schedule to be pissed at me. He had to move on to different things.
So
Thank
what?
God.
So what was next after all this? When did they finally start like including you and everything? Like we're gonna go with Maven, we're gonna build something here.
And now you're going to run into the problem that Zach has on a monthly basis with me. I My memory,
Hmm.
I don't like. I don't remember. Like Zach he'll bring up matches and stuff. He'll be like, "Ah, you remember when you wrestled so and so?" And I'm like, "No."
No.
Um, I just remember. I remember once Mania came, then I was off to the races. Then I was just out there. I still remember getting the call from Easy Money telling me probably 8 months later, saying, "Man, we're leaving this apartment. You got to come get your shit out of it." And because I hadn't been back, and a buddy of mine I talked him into driving from Virginia to Cincinnati and just filling his truck up, and then bringing all my stuff back to Virginia. It was a 7-hour trip. We did it. So it was 14 hours both ways, and we did it in one night. He drove. I told him, "You drive up, I'll drive back." And we drove up, loaded it up, and then I drove back. And it just then it was then just being on the road and being a full time wrestler,
Hmm.
and so looking back and thinking, man, 2 years ago I was in a classroom teaching.
Hmm.
It's just life's a whirlwind sometimes, man. You have no idea what could come. But I always believed in myself. I always had good people surrounding me. I
Hmm.
always had like the Al Snows of the world who were just always there to help me,
Hmm. Is there
and being thankful.
is there anything that was discussed that you can remember that didn't come to fruition for what they were going to do with you?
Huh. That's actually. Shoot, man, that'd make a good video, man. I don't know. That's a good video title. They did. All right, yeah. So at one point, The Rock pulled me aside and he said something had happened to me that he didn't like. Yeah, I don't know if it was with writing or whatever, but he pulled me aside and he said, "Yeah, man." He's like, he was getting ready to go away to do something. I don't know if it was Scorpion King or what, but he was like, "Yo, man." He's like, so and so did you dirty here. He's like, when I come back, we're gonna do an angle together. And I remember, I mean, Rock. There was very few people, probably Rock, Austin, Taker, and Rock, Austin. I mean, because this is before Cena was who he was. This is before Orton became who he was. But at this time, Rock, Austin, Taker, and Hunter were maybe the four that they could write whatever they wanted for themselves. So if Rock would have went to somebody and been like, "Yo, I'm doing this thing with Maven," they would have said, "Okay." And that he never came back in a full time capacity after that. And I'm always been like, man, I wonder what was on his mind. Like it would have been so cool, being able to do 6 weeks, with a program with him. So yeah, that would have been cool.
And for him to want to help you,
and I never got to ask him what it was, what he had in mind.
Well, for him to want to help you, I don't think he was going to be going over.
Well, but what if his idea was for us to tag?
That's true.
I have no clue what he had in mind. All I know is getting the rub from him would have been great. Yeah. I often joke around with, because anytime people find out that I'm a wrestler that they don't know wrestling, they always say, "Oh my God, do you know The Rock?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I helped him out a little bit." I'm glad to see he took some of the knowledge I gave him to do what he's doing with now. It's funny because, man, there's even as alpha male as that business is, and I truly believe a wrestling locker room is like high school. It's but the only difference is everybody in the locker room is the prom king, and every female is the prom queen. You're in there with the biggest alpha males in one location. You go to a movie set, yeah, you have your couple stars, but then everybody else is extras. In a wrestling locker room, everybody in that locker room at some point has been the best in their territory or their area or whatever. And it's an intimidating place. And then for him and Austin and Hunter and Taker, guys like that to stand out, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that and it's crazy to think that I got to work with all those guys too. You know what I used to do? I used to stand under the how they have how they had the ramp for Raw set up. I used to stand under it and listen to the crowd when guys would come out, and it's like they'll pop for people, but then they would have Austin and Rock. The minute that glass break, or the minute you'd hear "hip this," and the crowd was just different. It was an electricity that I wish I could show. I wish I could show people how that felt, because it's so cool. It's so cool.
Is there any favorite moments that you have during your time on the main roster?
The time, well, obviously the Taker moment. Like, I think that at the end of that, when the night was done and we pulled it off and it worked, like, that's probably the most proud I've ever been of anything in my life. Just because I went out and did something that, again, I mean, I could have effed up that whole pay-per-view. I could have effed everything up, and I didn't. And then the night I was the GM on Raw, they split Raw up into segments, and because that's backstage, that's how we would talk. What segment are you in? I'm in segment 6. So you get your A block, your first segment, and then they just eat every time it goes off into something new. That's a different segment.
Hmm.
And I think that night there was, I want to say 14 or 16 segments, and I was involved in like 11 of them. So it was just a ton to remember. I
Hmm.
had to remember a bunch of promos. And then on top of that, Hunter and I didn't start talking about our match until probably 30 minutes before we went out. Now, granted, thank God I was out there with him
Hmm.
because he's just the best. Like in the ring, he's the only guy I would wrestle with that I didn't blow up with.
Hmm.
It was weird. I wrestled Cardona 2 years ago, and it's same thing. I didn't Cardona. His pacing was so good, I did not blow up, and I would blow up shit in a 6 minute match on Heat, and so to go 20 minutes with Hunter and
Hmm.
not blow up, it was just. I remember I cramped up, so I was proud of that, of pulling that off because Vince pulled me aside and told me great job, that night, and
Hmm.
then doing having you know being in the Staples Center with Austin and taking a stunner the night after Mania. That was just but that was probably the most fun because it was easy. Austin didn't get there until like 30 minutes before we went out. So the whole day I didn't have anything to worry about because I didn't know what we were doing.
Hmm.
And then our agent told us at first it was designed that he was only going to give the stunner to um, Simon to Nova, and I was like, "Ah, man, I don't want to say I was pissed, but I was disappointed because I was
Hmm.
like, man, I wanted to take a stunner, who doesn't?
Exactly.
But I certainly wasn't going to pull Steve aside and be like, hey man, give me a stunner too. But fortunately for me, Steve being Steve,
Hmm.
once I was because originally we were planning I was going to be on the outside because when I went out, when he threw me out, that was it.
Hmm.
And he was going to do his beers and then leave. But fortunately for me, him going off script, he came out, got me, threw me in, and gave me the stunner completely off script, and that was so cool. Like that was probably the coolest thing.
Towards the end of your WWE run, did you see your release coming, or was it just a
Nah,
surprise?
nah, I signed a new contract like 3 months before.
Did they give
Like
you?
3 months before they shit canned me, I'd literally signed a 3 year extension. How the hell could I see it coming?
Mm-mm.
Like, yeah, no, it was a shock. Yeah,
Did they give you a
yeah.
reason, or was it your typical budget cut?
No, they didn't say budget cut.
Yeah.
They said that I just wasn't progressing at the level that they, saw fit. And I used to tell them, I'd be like, listen, you guys haven't even tapped into what my
Hmm.
skills are. Like my skills are talking. I used to tell them, I'd be like, listen, I, I'm never going to be the wrestler that Hunter or Jericho or
Hmm.
Orton is, but I can talk with any of them. I guarantee you that.
Hmm.
And they never that's what upsets me the most because I knew I could carry myself on the mic,
Hmm.
and that's what yeah, that's what's still hard. That's what still is hard to deal with. And one of the biggest compliments I get now is when people watch the channel or watch this and they say, man,
Hmm.
if WWE just would have let you do this or let this personality come out,
Hmm.
you know.
There's
Yeah, but
been. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, but woulda, coulda, shoulda, who done?
Yeah. Now you mentioned before that that you had a chance to return a couple years after, and then you almost went back right before the pandemic
Yeah,
hit. Is there any
yeah.
talks? Is there still you still talk to people there now that okay, let's go. What made you dip your toe back into with the YouTube? What made you say yes?
Well, in 2008, when they talked to me, I had just signed a contract with HSN.
Hmm.
And the reason I didn't go back then is I had guaranteed money with HSN. What if I would have, said no to them and then went back and then had WWE do exactly what they did to me before? Sign me for 3 months and then be like, this just isn't working out.
That happened a lot in
So
that time period of '08.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, what am I? And HSN, I made great money, and it was a great job.
Hmm.
I loved that job. And then in 2020, I mean, who the hell can see the pandemic coming?
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Now what made me get into the YouTube space was I knew when Zach presented this idea to me, and he and I we learned, we had Zoom calls, and we had this idea that we formulated over, I would say, probably a 2-month period before we started filming. He obviously had his idea of what he thought would work, and I told him, and basically we took his ideas,
Hmm.
and I told him what I think I'm comfortable with
Hmm.
presenting and what I think I'll be good at doing, and we formulated what you see now. And whatever happens from that happens. Am I looking for anything? No, I'm not.
Hmm.
We're doing quite well. We're
Hmm.
making good money, and I am my own boss.
Hmm.
And one of the biggest things I tell young people is, don't try to upgrade happiness.
Yeah.
What are you going to get happier?
Hmm.
So if they never want to work with me, fine. I'm fine with that. Or if they do want to work with me and we can find something that works, I'd be willing to talk to them. If AEW contacted me and had an idea, I would listen to them. I would hear them out, you
Hmm.
know. And if nobody wants me, then I'm fine with that. I'm gonna ride this YouTube thing out as long as I
Hmm.
can.
So you'd be open for a Rumble appearance?
Well, I hope they give me some time to get my ass in shape. I'm almost 50 now, brother. Everything hurts, and the drop kick's more like a navel kick these days.
Well, the
So
rumor is it's going to be in my neck of the woods in February, so it'd be pretty neat to see you
where's
at the.
home? Where's
I'm
home for you?
I am 40 minutes north of Louisville and 40 minutes south of Indianapolis,
Gotcha,
the home of Rip
gotcha.
Rogers.
Love it,
So they're
love it.
saying
God,
that Lucas
I got
Oil
so
might
much
host.
respect for Rip. I got so much respect for Rip. Do you ever get down to any of the OVW shows?
I've been to a couple, yeah.
Yeah, I love what Al's doing.
Hmm.
Love what Al's doing with there. He's so great with those kids.
He's he's done the show before, and he's a you can tell he is like a father figure to everybody.
And I think he's had to learn over the years to toughen up
Hmm.
and to not be their friends. Because when I was there a couple months ago, that's one of the things. He and I went out. I had dinner, and he's like, these people want to be my butt. Booker T, the same in Houston.
Hmm.
Booker, like, these guys, they look up to him and they want to be your buddies. And Booker was like, dude, I'm not your friend.
Hmm.
I'm the guy trying to get you where you want to be.
Hmm.
And it's tough because you gotta, sometimes you gotta just tell people, no, you're wrong, or don't do that. I've made that mistake. Don't go down that path.
Hmm.
But people are stupid. I know me. I've had to learn every lesson in life I've learned. It's because I had to learn it the hard way.
Yeah, same here.
So that's just how some people are.
What's it feel like to be loved still after all these years? You're still as popular
Oh
as
my God.
ever.
I don't know about that, but
Everybody loves Maven.
that just means people are smart. Now, you know what? Here's my hypothesis as to why that is. First, and probably the most eh, factual reason why, I'm everybody.
Hmm.
I am the fan. I am you. Anybody watching this, I'm you. The person that loved this business and thought in their pea brain, I want to do that. And I think people can grab hold and they can feel that. And they can literally watch my transformation from regular person, regular job, to someone who had a 5-year career. And then I also think people can understand struggle.
Mm-hmm.
They can understand being in the bottom and clawing your way back to the top. People can just, they understand that.
Mm-hmm.
They understand what it's like having to fight, to regain what you've lost. And they can respect that. And then in the end, I think I just Zach was great because he agreed from day one. I think there's already enough bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people, if you want to hear people get buried in wrestling, there's plenty of places to go watch that.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to hear people talk about how, how wrong, they were for not using them the right way, there's plenty of people doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer in positivity. And here's another thing that people don't realize. People don't fail to realize this, but people view you the way you are with other people.
Mm-hmm.
If you immediately start talking shit on somebody, if you start burying somebody, well, guess what? People think that's how people are gonna see you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're negative, then people are gonna view you negatively.
Yep.
But if you're positive, then the reverse is true. People are gonna view you that way as well.
Absolutely.
And it's one of the things that I think people, when they tune into my channel, we're not asking for much. We're asking for 10 to 20 minutes
Mm-hmm.
a week. And so it's a bite-sized bits of information we're giving them. They know they're going to learn something. That's one of the craziest things about this channel is I found out I know way more about wrestling than I thought I did. And so they know they're going to learn something, and they know there's going to be, I don't want to say a lesson, but there's going to be positivity in it. There's going to be something, whether it's me being self-deprecating, there's going to be something they can take
Mm-hmm.
from it that, they can be like, oh man, here's this guy I've watched for over 20 years who makes mistakes, who is far from perfect, but who is also pulling himself up and reinventing himself.
Mm-hmm.
People can relate to that. Man, it's hard to relate to the Undertaker or the Rock or whoever. It's hard, but
Mm-hmm.
they can relate to me because I'm one of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think the channel has been successful. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
If you had any advice to give to anybody getting into professional wrestling, what would it be?
Take 2 weeks off and then quit. Find something else to do. Nah. Find the best teacher that you can and learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
Shut this and open these. Listen and learn. And then once you are in wrestling, learn how to call a match in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
It gets so much more fun. Billy Gunn made me learn he refused to call stuff backstage. He's like, man, we'll figure it out there. And once I learned that, wrestling became so much more fun.
Mm-hmm.
So much more fun.
Where can people reach out to you at?
Just the YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the YouTube, and I'm on Instagram at Maven K Huffman as well. The Instagram is basically a way for me to funnel people to the YouTube. So. But yeah, Maven K Huffman on both. Check them out. We put new videos out every Friday, and Zach and I are actually we're noodling around the idea of how to do a membership option on the channel,
Mm-hmm.
because there's stuff we want to put out.
Yeah.
That it's not necessarily a Friday video, but
Mm-hmm.
just more content for people that want it.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think everyone's gonna want it? No, but for the people that do want it, it's there, and we're coming up with ideas, ways, because my favorite thing I found with all this is answering questions. I
Mm-hmm.
love answering fans' questions, and we're gonna try to do something where I do that once a week, and do it from a live setting.
Mm-hmm.
So, just once a week. And we'll probably do it I'm trying to talk Zach into doing it this way, where he is right where you're at,
Mm-hmm.
feeding me the questions,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get him comfortable with going on. I think and then reading questions to me. I think people would enjoy that.
They would. Yeah. Very much.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I just want to say thank you for taking the time out. I know you're an extremely busy person. Thank you for what you've done for professional wrestling and continue to do, sir.
Oh, Thank you. Don't call me sir. It makes me feel old. Listen. When Zach hits me up and tells me, that means you mean something to him. He doesn't do it often. So whatever you're doing to make him respect you that much, keep it up. Keep it up. Like I
appreciate
said,
that.
there's probably been 2 or 3 people in this past year that he's told me, "Hey, I want you to do this guy's show," and you're one of them. So
I appreciate
you keep doing
that.
what you're doing.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time today.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Brian.
If I can ever do anything, please feel free to reach out.
Likewise, you got my number. Please don't give it out to anybody. But
Never.
You use it if you need it again.
Oh, now I'm gonna get flooded.
Yeah, anybody wants to, Brian books all my shit. Just go through him.
Thank you.
You got it, Brian. Have a good one, buddy.